Hello everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. Today we will be continuing our journey in React. We will be starting React today because it is a very important front-end library that is being used extensively. Once we are done with that, then we can do many more things. Since we have understood functions in JS, so React should now be a bit easy. In order to understand how React runs in browser, we will be working with purely with React in this chapter. We will not introduce JSX or JavaScript as XML until next chapter. We may have worked with React in the past without ever looking at pure React code that is generated when we transpile JSX into React. You can successfully use React without React at pure React. However, if you take time to understand what is going on behind the scenes, you will be more efficient, especially when it comes to debug. So the goal is basically to understand how React is going to work behind the scenes. Now, okay, so now in order to work with React in browsers, we need to include two libraries, React and ReactDOM. The React is the library. So React basically comes with two things. Whenever you are dealing with React, you'll have to deal with two things. One is React, and then is something is called as the other wing, which is called as is the ReactDOM, right? Now, React and ReactDOM are split into two packages for version 0.0.4. The release note states the beauty and the essence of React has nothing to do with browsers or DOM. Splitting into two packages paves the way to write native components to understand more how React is going to work. Now, this React is maintained and it's a front end UI maintained and developed by Facebook, right? So you can go to React developer page and you can see more about that. But then we'll see that. Oh, what happened? Yeah, I just need to move this thing here. Arrange, flip it. Perfect. Let's catch it. So yeah, React has two things: React and React DOM. Now we'll see everything. Now both libraries are available as scripts from Facebook CDN. So this is from Facebook CDN. We'll see what CDN are, content delivery networks. We'll see that in the networking thing. Now HTML document set up with React. So now okay, now let's see. So this is how it will look when we add React to React to. So when we add React to directly to HTML, so this is how it is going to look. Let's make it. Yeah. So basically, remember, like we'll see why we have included a div tag, right? So this is basically HTML document. So you see, this is my HTML markup that is coming up. This is my HTML document. We'll see later on why we have included everything in this DOM or div tag. We'll see that later on. But yeah, we have this header, right? Like, what's the goal of this? This is basically two. One is for adding React, and another is for adding the React DOM. This is our JavaScript code here, which is written in script tag. Now the HTML is simply so virtual. So now the first topic that we would be talking about is the virtual DOM, right? So what is the difference between virtual DOM and normal DOM? And we'll see all those things. So virtual DOM or virtual document object model. The HTML is basically a set of instructions that a browser follows when constructing the document object model or DOM. The elements that make up an HTML document become DOM elements when the browser loads HTML and renders the user interface. So basically, what is going to happen is, suppose we have basic. First, we let's see what happens when we just have normal HTML code running, right? So what the browser is going to do is the browser is going to convert all of this HTML code into All of this code is getting going to get converted into an HTML DOM, right? Now, basically, what that DOM is, it's basically a tree is going to be formed, right? So, first is are going to have is the first you're going to have this HTML tag, which is my parent or my root tag. So this is how the HTML DOM gets created, right? Then you have some. So instead of having, then you will have these meta tags placed over here. For example, so inside the head, yeah, this is the, then you will have the head tag, right? So which will contain all the meta information. Now the job or the role of this information is for search engine optimization, right? So whenever we are going to, so Google is basically a web crawler, right? So for it to produce our results at the top, we need to modify this. So after the HTML thing, you have something called as the head tag, right? Now once you have the head tag being present, then you have the body, right? So then is where the body basically indicates the body of the body content, right? So here, this is where you're going to have the actual body being present. So this is my body tag. So now, so from head, now we are going to classify into this is now going to come under body, right? So this is my so now after this is what my body tag is going to come. This basically indicates the from where the actual markup is going to start, or the web page layout is going to start. So now here in after the body, right, we have this section, right? So then we'll be having a section tag. Now is when we'll be so this is my section tag coming in. So now under this section tag, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have different child, right? The first child that I have is basically this h1 tag, right? So this is my first child. So this is, then I'm going to have this h1 which is coming here and being is present here. After that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this list. So then you have this unordered list that is coming into existence, right? This is my unordered list. So then you have, this is where unordered list coming into existence. So you have this unordered list. Now then you have the list elements being present here, right? This is my list elements. So then you have li. This is the children of these elements, right? So you have multiple allies. Then remember, okay, this h1 is not a child, it is just present in this. Okay, oh, I did something wrong. This h1 is going to be present independently, and then after this, so we are going to have one more tag that is coming in. We are going to have the unordered list HTML tag. Then you have the allies being present here, or the list elements that is present here. Now once that is done, then you have another section which is coming into existence, right? So then you have the section tag which is present here. So then, so this is my unordered list, this is my h1. So I have my unordered list h1, and then um and then you are going to have something called as so after this is what you're going to do is you're going to have this uh, section tag, right? So this is my section tag. Okay, and then once you have generated this section, in that you're going to have, so we have different elements in here, right? You have h1, you have p tag, then you have uh, yeah, basically you have the different p's being present here. So you have pa and like the number of p's these are basically children. And then at last what do you have is, okay, so this is my first outer section that is getting, oh, do I have two section here? This is one and this is, okay, so yeah, and then this is the outer section. So right, this is the perfect the child of this. So this is how my HTML DOM will look like. If the moment it gets converted and read this is how it is going to be related. Now HTML elements relate to each other in a hierarchy that resembles of, this is basically a family tree, right? The root of the element has three children, so I have, the root is basically having three. So the root is section, I guess. Heading and an another list. So this is my root element, and then you have three. One is h1, un, and another section. Traditionally, websites have consisted of independent HTML pages. When user navigates to these pages, the browser will request and load different HTML documents. The invention of Ajax brought us the single page application or HPS. Since browsers could request and load, so what it's doing is, now every, so in when you have a website being made, right, so you have different sections on top. For example, you can have different sections, right? For example, here it is body section, then you have um, you have body section, and then you have contact section, and then you have, okay, and then you have header section, right? This is my header. This is my h1. This is my header section 2. This is my header section 2. This is my header section 3, and so on. Oh, so what is going to so suppose this is going to represent an about page. So traditionally what used to happen is, so this is my landing page, right? So landing page is the one, the moment you type a website, for example I type in google.com. So the moment the page that, this is my landing page. When I click on individual pages, I'm navigating, right? So this is my landing page. Now these are having different sections, right? So now remember, for this landing page, what I will be requesting is, remember, I am a client, right? And I'll be requesting my service or my server to serve me and provide the requested files, right? So this is going to provide me the requested files. And although like there is a lot of authentication and authorization that takes place, we're not dealing with that right now. Our only role is to understand how this is going to work. Okay, so this is basically our server and our client. So this is my client, and then this is my server, which is going to request the page. So what is going to happen is, this is my request that is being sent out, right? So you have the request going out over here, and then this is the response that is coming in, right? So this is my response coming in. Now what, so the moment I request for this landing page, so my server is going to send me back my landing page, right? So it is going to send basically three files. One is my landing page HTML. Secondly, what it is going to send me is the landing page CSS. And the thing that is it is going to send me is the landing page JavaScript, right? So all these three are going to be returned by my server, which acts like a central body which is going to serve my request. Now, um So now basically when we are suppose in contact page, right? So this is my contact. This is going to be my contact page, right? Now what is going to happen is the moment I'm going to click on this contact page. Now previously what used to happen is previously without the introduction of single page application, now this contact page is also going to be a new HTML page, right? The moment I navigate to this tab, so what is going to happen is um, so in my client server model, this is my client server. uh, this client is again going to send a request to my server, right? And then the server is going to respond back. So now what I'm requesting is basically I'm saying to the server, please give me the HTML or the markup that has my contact page in it. So then I'm saying, okay, send me my contact page markup information. So basically send me the contact page HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So now what this is going to return here is, so here I'm going to have three things being returned. First is my contact page HTML, and then I have contact page uh, CSS, and then you have contact page JS. So basically I'm making more requests, right? So this is not a very good way to have our HTML or our web pages loaded in our browser. There are new techniques that have come up. For example, single page, right? We'll see what's the advantage of using that single page application, and then we'll go on from there. Now, since browsers could request and load tiny bits of data using Ajax, now entire web applications could now run without of a single page. Now could now run out of a single page and rely on JavaScript to update the user interface. In a single page application, the browser initially loads HTML. As the users navigate to the site, they are actually stay on the same page. Java. So what now? What? So this is not a very good thing, right? See, I have to send so many requests. For example, if you okay, let's see Google page, right? So now the moment I now let's see this network thing. So now the first thing I am request. Oh, so this is when my I get my Google document. Right? This is my get. If you see the response, this is going to be my HTML page which is coming in, and the applied CSS and something like that. So if I do a preview, so this is how it is going. This is my response. Oh, sorry, my response that I'm getting right from the server. Now initiator is basic. So basically, this is not. Um, this is we don't need this right now. So basically, this is my first request which I got right. And the moment I do about page, so now I'm not making new request. If you see, there is no uh, like no request which is happening. Basically, we are just creating things on the fly, right? That is what is the advantage, right? So you are reducing the number of first of all HTML requests that are being sent out, and that is the core. So here is when I got my Google document. Now when I navigate to it, see the link which is forming here. This is something, although like this. So now I'm over here, right? HTML and like this link generation has take place. So in a single page application, the browser initially loads one HTML. As users navigate to the site, they actually stay on the same page. So what JavaScript is doing is JavaScript is dynamically making this or creating this web page, right? Now, as users navigate through the site, they actually it may feel as though you are jumping from one page to the other, but instead we are on the same HTML page and JavaScript is doing the heavy lifting. The DOM API is a collection of the objects that JavaScript can use to interact with the browser to modify the DOM. If you have used document.createElement, document that open shell, this is basically DOM APIs, right? Updating or changing, rendering the DOM elements in JavaScript is relatively easy. However, the process of inserting new elements is painfully slow. This means if the web developers are meticulous about how they are making changes to the UI, they can improve the performance, right? Managing DOM changes with JavaScript efficiently becomes very complicated. But then there is a drawback, right? Every time you do a DOM manipulation, it is kind of every time JavaScript is doing the heavy lifting, it can be a bit time consuming as well, right? From coding perspective, it is easier to clear all the children of a particular element and reconstruct the tree, right? Than those to leave children in one place and then to try to update them. So what if it would have been a normal HTML and then we were trying to update the HTML? That would be a very bad, difficult problem as compared to just clear out the DOM and create a new tree using JS. React is a library that is designed to update the browser DOM for us. We no longer have to be concerned with the complexities associated with building a form and a space because React will do for us. Now with React, we do not interact with the DOM. Instead, we react with something called as a virtual DOM or a set of instructions that React will use to construct the UI. So here we are not dealing with the actual DOM. Basically, a virtual DOM is created, and then we'll see why that, like what heavy lifting or what is the advantage of having that virtual DOM made up of React elements being present there. Now, although it may conceptually see similar to HTMLs, but these are actually JavaScript objects. Now, it is much faster to work with JavaScript than to work with DOM API. Now, we make changes to JS, the virtual DOM, and React renders those changes for us using the DOM API as efficiently as possible. Now, React elements. Now, the browser DOM is made up of DOM elements. Similar, the React DOM is made up of React elements. So basically, React uses its own kind of DOM, which is different from a normal DOM. So React uses its own DOM. Now, what does React DOM consist of? A React DOM consists of React elements. A normal DOM will consist of normal DOM elements. So normal DOM consists of DOM elements. So on similar lines, React DOM will consist of React elements. Now, when we create a React element to represent an h1 using a React.createElement, React.createElement h1 null baked cell. The first will define the type of element that we wish to create. So, for example, we use a React.createElement, right? This is so just like how you have DOM.create, you have something called as React.create, right? So the moment we do this, what is going to happen is a new DOM element is okay. Let's no. Why did this come? Let's get rid of this. This is going to basically create our new DOM. Okay, so here is when our new DOM is going to create. So this is my creating. So what this basically means, you create an h1. Now the context inside the h1 is the content is going to be my baked salmon or this portion. Now, and there is one more specifier null, right? The third represents the element children and any nodes that are inserted between. And so this is basically anything that is between the h1 and the opening h1 and closing h1, right? Now what does the second element represent? Now the second is they represent the element properties. So this is, we'll see what do you mean by element properties. So right now there are now properties present here. This is null. Now this is the tag and this is the content. Now during render React will, so what React does is, now the initial, this is not, so we are going to only write this part, right? So what the React is going to do is, so it is going to create a DOM and it will convert this element to a virtual. So in if you have an H2 actual HTML, this element will be placed like this way, right? And then big salmon will be present in this tag inside. Now when an element has attributes, they can be described with properties. Here is an example. So for example, okay, there is one more thing that we have. So let's see, when we are saying certain attributes, right? Because our HTML tag also has certain, for example, some of the tags you can have some attributes being passed as well, right? What happened to this? Let's get rid of these. Oh, uh, I don't want this. Is that no? No, this is some different element, right? Now, so now what this means is, so we have understood. So this is going to indicate my h1 tag, right? So you have the h1. This is basically my content that is coming in. Now this is an object that is passed, right? Now previously in our previous example it was null, but now we have certain um properties present here, right? So this is what our properties are. So if you compare it to HTML, this is nothing but my HTML attributes. If you see in HTML, these are called as attributes. Now this is an object which is being passed. And when an HTML element has an attribute, they can be described with properties. So here is, so this is basically my properties, right? Now the way in if you have the same thing in HTML, the way it will be looking is, or the way that would be present is, oh, what happened? Let's have space this thing. No, something. Okay, so this is how the HTML would look like. So this is my content, right? So whatever is the content that comes between the tag. So now these are all attributes, right? So you have ID, recipe, data type, and title. So this is basically how. So these are my attributes that are being present here. So you have mentioned the HTML attributes. The properties are similar to applied DOM elements. The properties are needed to the tag as attributes, and the children text which is added. We'll also notice the data root which identifies this as the root of the React. So you have something called as a React root. So we are saying that this is my root React element. Then you have an ID. So this is basically for my CSS. So you have in CSS you have something called as an ID selector. So we are basically performing that. Now this is my data type. Okay, this is something which we'll see later on. Then you have my content, right? That has come in, so that's okay. Now data React root. Now data React root will always appear as an attribute of the root element or React component. Prior to version 15, React IDs were added to each node, so that that was a part of a component. Now this helps with re-rendering, and now we are going to try. So basically this is going to help with our re-rendering process, right? Suppose if you make any changes, for example, if on a click of a button, so you have a countdown you have a you have uh, a like a screen that measures the number of times you press the button. So for example, one, this is my button. So the moment I press this, so this should be updated to one, right? So all thing did not be re-rendered, right? Only this inside box is changing. So we only need to render that. So we'll see that. Now, so a React element is just a JavaScript little that tells React how to construct that all. So basically, React element is just like so it is basically telling my React DOM. So how should you basically it is going to help or tell my React DOM to perform or to generate my root element, right? So this is my React DOM. Now the type property. Okay. Now these are there are fields that are used by React owner. So no, okay. There are we'll see this later on. So um, now note on creating. Now we are taking a peek at the object that React.createElement returns. Now this is a newer case where you will create elements by hand typing. This that looks like this. You must always create React elements with the React.createElement. Okay, so you always create the element using this. No React DOM. No React DOM contains the necessary tools that we need to re-render the React elements in the browser. Now React DOM is where we will find the render method as well as the render to string and render to static markup methods. Now all the tools are necessary to generate HTML from virtual DOM and are found in this library. Now when we re-render a React element including the children to the DOM with React DOM.render, the element that we wish to render is passed as the first argument and the last argument is the target node where we should render the element. And now okay, now basically what is going to happen is now rendering the title element in the DOM will add an heading one element to the div with the ID of React. Now React added the H1 element to the target React container. Okay, so okay when okay now there is something called as React.com that render. Like let's see. Have we to write all this code? No, no. This is all written internally. We don't have to write. But however, if you're writing this, like this is like an alternate way to use it. But we won't be writing this. We won't be directly. These are already present elements, right? So we will be implicitly using this. So under the hood, what's happening is that is what we are trying to understand. So now when we say React dot render, now what is going to happen is so we are going to get this element. So first we are searching an element by the ID of React.container, and then what we are going to add is we are going to add it to my um, which we have already. So this is already defined in my HTML, right? What I'm going to add this is I'm going to add this dish. Now what is my dish? Okay, yeah. Now because this is everything is in JavaScript, right? So now it's because so the whole goal was remember to use JavaScript to create our web pages and not our HTML. So what we are going to do is uh, let's clean this thing. Yeah. Okay. So now this is basically referring to my this variable, right? And this variable basically creates the h1 baked salmon. So I am adding document that get element by container id, and to that okay, so this is so what this is going to do is this is going to create an h1, right? And then document, so then there should be already an element present. So I have an element that has an id of react.container. So the id is already present in here. If I am just able to copy, can I copy only no, let this be. So now let's write it properly so that we can understand it more clearly. So now okay, let's make this a little bit large. So basically suppose we are already having a container or an element that has this, we haven't basically, and whose id is something called as react container, right? There will be this will be my opening and this is my closing tag. Now what I'm going to do this is I'm going to add this h1 in here. So basically inside this my h1 tag or h1 element is going to be present. So this is my dish, right? So this is basically getting added in here. All of the DOM rendering functionality in React has been moved to the React DOM because we can use React to build native applications as well. The browser is just one target for React. Now that's all you need to know. You create an element and then you render it. So basically this is how we create an element and then we add it to the DOM using React DOM.render. Now children. Now React DOM allows you to render a single element to the DOM. The React tags as a data structure. So now what if we have multiple children, right? So um, what if we have an element that has multiple children? So this is interesting. From your things are going to be interesting. Now the all other React elements are composed into a. So what React is going to do is now this element will be composed into a single element, and when we do a React dot create element, so what we would be doing is something like this. This is some cool stuff which is coming up. Just give me 1 minute. Okay. So basically, what React is going to do is, um, okay, where are we? Yeah. Now, for example, we have this list, right? And then we are having the every additional argument. Okay, so this is something cool, right? So this is my parent element which I'm passing in here, and then I'm passing all my child inside that. So now React render style elements using props.child. In previous section, we rendered a text element as a child of the h1 and thus props.children was set to big. So now this is basically my children element, right? So if I compare this with this one, so this baked element is nothing but this thing that is passed. Uh, so now we could render other React elements as children too, creating a tree of elements. Now this is why we use the term component tree. The tree has one root component from which branches might grow. So in the sample, the another list is the so this UL is basically my parent element, which is going to be present here. That is going to be so if you would have had to do yeah. So basically, this is all my children, which is good. In this sample, the another list is the root and it has 6 children. We can represent them, this UL and its children with S. So this is basically how my children are going to be present and this is my parent. Now, every additional argument sent to the create element function is another child element. Now, React creates an array of these children elements and sets the value of props children to that array. So what React will do is React internally we create an array and it will set value of props dot children to that array. So props dot children value will be set to that array. Okay. Now every additional arguments and this is okay. If you were to inspect the resulting React element, we will see each list element represented by a React element and added to an array called props dot children. So now you can instead of having this, what you can do is you can create an so internally how it is going to be is basically you are going to have um, an object that is being created and then that object will be okay. So this is now I will be having an object present here, right? Let's close. So now, so basically, this is my child, right? This is our my child, and this is my main or my parent element that has been present. So we said the child will be present in props dot children. So this is my props dot children, right? So first you access this object, and then inside that you have this children object present here. Now, so now we will now say that each element is a child. Now, earlier in this chapter, we introduced HTML for an entire recipe rooted. Now, to create this using React, we'll use a series of create element calls. So then, to create this, we will be calling like have a different number of React dot create elements being passed in. Now, any element that has an HTML class. So now so the ID identifier is in HTML is the same as ID. However, if it's a class, then we give it a class name. So in DOM, it will be class name. Maybe in React, it will be called as class name. Now constructing elements with data. Now the major advantage of using React is the ability to separate data from UI elements. Since React is just JavaScript, we can add JavaScript logic to build as React component 3. So for what is okay, what he's trying to say is now instead of okay, we can basically map okay. So this is so basically in my unordered list is we were performing something like this, right? In the previous example. So we were working when we were working with the unordered list, we were doing something like this to generate my to generate that page, right? So basically this has to be React. Now instead of having this, what we can do is we can change this thing to something called as variable items object array. Now what we can do is, so the only thing which is changing here is this part, right? So this is changing. So you have this part changing, you have this part, this, and so basically the basically the children is changing, right? So if you have that object, basically this, so inside this children prop dot children is what is going to change. So now what we can do is instead of having to write multiple times, right, you can use JavaScript to this. So what we can do is we can map, or we can use an because this we can use an array to store, and then we can just map it. Okay, so that's an easy way, right? Instead of multiple repeating, because that is going to mean, so that is basically we are repeating code, right? So let's get rid of that. Now this array dot map is okay. Let's have this color, and then let's change our marker. So now basically the last item is what is going to change, right? Okay. So this is the last thing that is going to be different, right? So what we are saying is you map it to an array. So and what we do is we store all of these properties in an we create an array first. So let's create an array. So array is we are going to have my so this is my array that I have created. Now what I'm going to do is now I'm going to do something called as, so this is my array items dot map. So this is my items dot map. So which is now, so the moment it will iterate through, this ingredient will be my first element, second element. Oh, So first it will be my first element, then it will be okay. Let's show it proper. This is my first element, then this is my second element, this is my third, this is my fourth, then you have a fifth, and then this is my last. So basically, you are going to loop through these elements. Now, the moment you start looping it, you will get an error, right? Saying that the each child of an array iterator should have a unique key prop. Check the top level render call using UL. Now, what is this information? Like, what problem or what is this? Now, when we do building out children through an array, React likes each of these elements to have a Cree property. Now, the Cree property, so basically what React want is, or the way implemented in the background is, under the hood is, now React will want this to have a key property, a unique key property to each element, so that at the time of re-rendering, we can render only that portion that we need to re-render instead of re-rendering everything, right? So what we do is, we can add in one more property, right? For example, we can have, first is my array elements, let this be my element, the other is basically going to represent the index, right? Now using index to be used as key is not a very good behavior, however it is okay. The problem with this is, suppose you are modifying the array, right? So now, for example, this is my one, so this I have 5 elements present here, right? And then I do array dot push. So when I do array dot push, what is going to happen is, I'm going to have a new array which is being created, and the size of that array is going to be 6, right? Or for example, I do a pop out, instead of pushing, I do a pop operation, right? So pop, what is going to happen is, now instead of 5, I'm going to make this thing 4. Let's get it off. So I have now 4 elements. Now when 4 elements happen, what is going to happen is, the indexes are also going to be changed. So now instead of, I'll be having 0 to 4 index, and here it is 0 to 4 here, right? So this is not a proper way to keep a track, right? So this is not a proper way to keep, because now whatever okay, the reason why it is not a very good way is, whatever was present at the 0th element will not necessarily be present at the 0 element in a new array, right? It will be it will be changed. So hence, this is not a very good mapping of using keys. Instead, what you should do is, you should do something called as a random number generator, which is a very common method to map and remember the keys, right? So never use the indexes as the keys, because again, the moment we try to modify, or the moment we add some elements in the array, the entire structure of the array has been changed, right? So it is no longer what it used to be. It will be something new. Now every interface is, so now the next that we come part is to React components, right? So what is a React component? Now every interface is made up of parts. So for that, what he's trying to say is, so let's assume this is my landing page, right? So this is my landing page. This can be further divided into different parts, right? So you have, first is my navigation part, then you have the then you have the main body, or the main body, which is, oh no, what happened? Then you have the main body part of the element. So this is the body of the, this is the main body of the element. The next thing that you have is basically my the footer section, right? So you can have, so you can add in the footer section as well here. So this is my main header section, and then this is my body section, and then this is basically my footer section, right, which is basically present at the bottom part. So we have divided our pages into different sections or different parts. This is my header, this is my body, and this is again my footer. So basically these are nothing but we can say this is components, right? So you can have this as my header component, this you can be my body component, and then you can have the footer component. So basically instead of this is making our code more readable, more understandable. Now in React we describe each of these parts of components. Now components allows us to use DOM, right? For example, for example, what if we have another so when we navigate to about page, what if we have another thing which has the same footer section? So instead of writing the footer section again, you can just import it from here, right? So this, what if this footer section and this is the same? You can just do a simple export, and then basically what we are doing is we are just preventing the reuse of something, so that we are enabling reuse, so that we write code only when it is necessary, and we try to reuse things as much as possible, making our code easy to maintain and more readable. Now, React.create class. When React was introduced in 2013, there was only one way to create a component, the React class function. Create class function. Now methods of creating components have emerged, but create class is still widely used. The way you do new methods are now, the React team has indicated, however, that the React class may be deprecated in the future. Let's consider the list of ingredients which are included. So what we are going to do is we are going to create a first component. React. Now this is basically we are talking about 2013. We are right now in 2025. So 12 years have passed. So we have modern ways of doing the same thing. We will be dealing with the modern things, and we are not going to deal with how. However, you can still use it. So the way it is to work is the way to create a component is, so basically you do okay. So okay, let's let's get this thing on, and let's change the color to something. So basically what this is going to do, so this is going to, so this is saying you create a new component, create class. This is basically responsible for creating my new component. Now how it is going to be displayed is my display name is like ingredients list. Now remember, and then I'm going, so basically I need to do a single return. So this is my, okay, if I have, this is what, where is the single return? This is one return thing. Yeah, basically, oh yeah, this is where my parent is, right? So basically, this is the patching thing, and then I have, oh no, now, and so this is how you are going to create a component, and then you're going to add this component to the DOM. So we do React dot. This main component has to be added, right? So this is my starting. Oh yeah, here is when. So basically, I'm going to do create the parent one, and then so this is the opening one, and then okay, this is where this is all my children properties, and yeah, this is how that other this is basically attributes, right? So I'm giving it a class, and so this is, yeah, so I'm basically returning this react.create, and this is my object, and this is my component creation. Now components allows us to data to build to reuse. Now this is just component creation, not to I haven't added this parent one. So you need to add the parent element by going to react.createElement. So now instead of using ul, now it will be ingredient list, right? So you can address this using this, and you can do react.createElement ingredients list, and then you can and then you can do it. Now you need, so once you have created it, then you need to add the DOM, right? So now once you have, this is basically for my component creation. Now once the component has been created, you directly add it to the DOM. So this is how I'm going to add it to the DOM. Let's delete this. This is basically adding elements to the DOM, right? So this is my the ingredient list. Oh yeah, this and this. It's coming from here, right? So yeah, the ingredient list coming in from here, and then basically we are going to add this. So basically we are saying you have going to have a root level container, right? So add this element in there. This is referring to my ingredient list. Now components allow us to allow data to build to your usable UI. Okay. Now we can use this keyword to refer to the component instance and properties that can be accessed based on that instance. For example, you can use this dot something to indicate that we are referring to the current instance. We'll see when that becomes more important. And let's look at the okay. So we haven't gone with the function, right? We are still with component creation. And this is basically how we are using like without any we haven't downloaded that or installed that package. This is just using the web link. So this is creating everything from scratch. So when you install the package, at times things are already installed, right? So we are not doing that. Some blueprint or basic structure will already be created. Okay. Yeah, we haven't gone to JSX yet. So JSX is going to make writing React more easy, right? Then we'll see what is Babel, and this is basically raw JavaScript. We haven't done or we haven't used JSX to write a React code. Okay. Just let me check something. Yeah. So JavaScript is something like JSX, like syntax. We are not still using that, right? We are just using uh, raw, raw React. When you use JSX or when we use JSX, what it does is it kind of does that transpilation to automatically from JSX to, because indirectly React.createElement is what is going to create, right? And React dot uh, so like under the hood is React.createElement that is going to work, which is going to create my React tree, right? So So instead of us using JSX to write, we can you can just use we can just use React dot create element to use like to you. This is basically how it is developed, right? So on the road when you have JSX, we'll be doing something um, to convert that React into or to convert that JSX to create React dot create element. But if you know React dot create element, you can directly use it. But then you will have to manually add it to the DOM as well, because just like you have DOM, so React will create its own DOM. So you need to mention that to don't forget that your when you're using React dot create element, yeah, you have to do some sort of manual lifting, basically mentioning the DOM dot render, else you won't get it. Like you will not be able to see the output, which is not a very good thing. Yeah, we just like repeating lines of code, right? Which can be so JSX will take care of that. We'll see JSX later on, but let's like now. So then, okay, let's go to React page itself and see. This is React.dev. Now this is basically maintained. So we are current version is 14, maintained and mentioned by Facebook. So this is something different, right? So we haven't studied this. Basically, this is an example. This is function based. So this is JSX, right? This is what is. So yeah, well, good lot of community Stack Overflow, and then you can see in the team as well. So this is Vercel. Now, what is Vercel? We'll see. So these are guys. So you have yeah, it was by Facebook, right? So all these guys are working at Facebook because it was like a single page application thing. Uh, these are basically docs as well, who has people who have designed the doc who are maintaining the site. So yeah, you can go and check them out. And you have quick start as well. So this is everything is in JX. It's not mentioned. So this is writing markup with JXX. We haven't done that yet. We are still writing it the old way, or no, using hooks. No. We want to see this setup, how you can install it. Then this is uh, you can always search React.create. See React. Oh no, not create factory. I wanted React. Dot. Oh, so you won't be able to get that thing. Hmm. Because your legacy. No, we don't have that. So internally, it is React dot create element which is working. Or that is what is going to give my JSX. So either you use create the React DOM. Because JSX is more readable because it is uh, easy, like HTML like thing, right? So kind of becomes easier. So when you get an error, you will see React.element, create element failed, or unique key required, something like that is like the internal thing. So mm. So before JSX, we had React dot create element being used a lot, and then once we moved to JSX, then everything changed, right? We can see GitHub of React. Oh yeah, it's here. So this is the latest thing. Below is the new. So what have been deprecated and changes. So this is the DOM server and applications. This is my React DOM. So these are people who have. So, okay. This is the zip file that is coming in. Okay. So you have so many things. Let's go back. So React and then uh, it is Babel. That is not what we are. So it is basically a part of top level React API. Uh, Basically, yeah, when you do React.create, so React is basically an object. If you see that way, so React has different. So React is basically JS object that is created, I guess. And in that, you have many different things that you can do. React is a JavaScript object that contains all core functions and methods needed to build the React application. When you import React in a file, so when you do import React from React, basically what I'm doing is I'm importing the JavaScript object that includes key methods, and then I'm referring it to like React.createElement, React.useState. Okay, it's a JavaScript namespace object, basically just like how you have math from how you're importing math.random from math package. So what React dot create element basically when we do is at top level we do import React from React, right? So at the top level we'll be doing this. So what we are when we do an import, basically this is what we are doing, right? So we are saying, oh no, this is basically my top level import, right? So I'm doing import React from React. Now by this what I'm meaning is uh, whatever the object is present in the React file, you put it inside React. And the way we access when we access it, like when we do a React dot create element, so we can say React is nothing but an object, right? So this is like a big object thing that we have here. So whenever we are so for example, and whenever to access, so this object is stored in this variable, right? So to access the inner methods, we are going to say react dot create element or react dot use effect, use reference, use memo, whatever we want to do, and so on. Now why are they called as API? Like why are they APIs? And this is again very fundamental, right? So we say these are my core APIs. So why we are using APIs? Okay, these are basically core APIs. Now this is something to be talked upon. Now what an application programming? So APIs is basically called as an application programming interface, right? So what it does is, suppose this is like we have a database server, right? So instead of accessing the server, you kind of use an API to the server, and the job of that API is to bring back the data, right? When you have, so basically instead of contacting the server, you will be having an API layer that is present. So this API is going to do the hard work for you. So it is going to go there and come back. You are just going to contact the API which is present. Let's see, API. So you don't send request to the server, right? You kind of do the API and the API will service you, right? And provide, it will do the hard work for you. You just request the API. The API is what is going to do the business logic and computation. So on similar lines now, the wait, let's have a new arrow altogether. I guess this box is what is causing this issue. I move this arrow a little bit. Yeah, this is good. So this is the API layer which is present here. So this is like an application programming. This we are going to send request to this API, right? We are saying, oh, API, we are going to contact the API and we are not going to contact my, we are going to contact this person. The API is going to contact the server and bring us data. So basically, an API is a contract that defines how essentially software components interact. Now in React, the React object. So instead of exposing the underlying implementation, this is the API is what is going to do the work for you. So instead of exposing the logic behind this, you kind of provide an interface. Again, using which you can access the React object, right? So instead of us as developers directly accessing this, um, or directly accessing the core React package or the core React object, um, what we do is we kind of only use the we use the API that is going to contact and give us the working behind it. So basically, yeah. So instead of using the internal logic and then implementing it, we kind of provide it like an endpoint. You use these APIs and then basically just um, access the functionality using the API instead of using the logic. Because we are not concerned how create element is working, right? How that is working. We are not concerned with that. We are our only goal point is basically to use, right? And we do not need the boilerplate code, right? There might be some boilerplate code which using which React is updating. We don't want all that. We just want the endpoint and then the uh, we just want the API endpoints to just access the internal logic. We do not want how that logic is implemented, because writing that logic in our code is going to be making our code more bigger. We don't want that to happen. We just want our code to um, we just want this endpoints to be there so that the endpoints can directly access the code, the internal way how create element is present. We don't we just want that endpoint to be there. Mhm. Yeah, we are going to for example, there might be something called as a diffing algorithm, how the which the React algorithm is going to work, right? So we don't want those algorithms to be exposed. We just want the endpoint so that uh, internally it might be implemented in a way. So when we deal with, so how is create element internally present, right? You can check that, I guess. Create element API under the hood. So the under the hood is so we don't want that. So under the hood, React.createElement is the core function that transforms our JX into lightweight JavaScript objects. Now that will describe what should appear on the screen. So these objects are later used by the React's reconciliation algorithm. So we are not dealing with how the reconciliation algorithm is going to get linked, right? We just want to create our element internally. That linking is not our headache, right? It's all React's extension or uh, React's internal code that is going to handle that. We don't want all those things to be there. Yeah. So like you can take an example of a car, right? So you do basically whenever you have a car, I mean, it's just like same thing, right? In car, you have like an accelerator switch or a gas pedal, right? So you don't want you are not the person who is going to check, or you we are just going to press the pedal, right? So the moment you press the gas pedal, the car will move ahead. So we are not worrying about how this gas pedal is going to contact the engine, and how that engine is going to contact the transmission system, how the fuel which is getting burned is going to provide energy to this. So that all is internal, right? So on similar lines, so this create element is this thing, the endpoint API. Now how this is going to work, that is not needed, right? We don't want to understand that, but at sometimes it's good. That will give us some. So for example, when you do some optimization or something at that time, or something breaks, for example this thing breaks down at that time, it's good to understand how it's working behind the scenes. Okay, so I guess this is all for today's lecture and introduction to React. I'll see you guys in the next one with little bit more uh, in React, and then we'll try to write some code. That is all for this lecture. I'll see you guys in the next one. Till that time, take care. Bye bye.